you all the way around the world. It's a pleasure and an honour and a privilege to be here with you. In fact, it's a pleasure and an honour and a privilege to be here, full stop. This being the biggest gift that could possibly be that any of us could ever receive. The gift of existence and having a body, a vehicle, and conscious apparatus with which to experience and enjoy it. And what a dog's here, we make of it all. We make it so difficult. The human condition is such a tricky, challenging one for everyone, for everyone, for everyone. There are moments, of course, where the game rolls smoothly and depending on what level you're referenced to, how deep that level is, or how superficial, is the degree to which you'll take that as a permanent thing, only to be disappointed afterwards, usually rather quickly. The more referenced you are to the deepest part of yourself, these passages of grace, which are inevitably followed by passages of difficulty, and which are observed to be cyclical. The Taoist calls the yin-yang cycle. You learn to gradually not identify so much with the extreme sensations associated with the throw from one side to the other, and are thereby able to enjoy the ride with less interruption. You see, the only thing that actually stops us enjoying it, within, internally that is us bringing interference on our natural state. The natural state is one of, well, we could say it was neutral, but nothing really is. It's always either a bit of yin or a bit of yang or both. It's if it had to be described, you could call it one of innate gleefulness. I'm not talking elation, I'm talking about a discrete glee just for being, just for the miracle of being. And the aspect of us that does feel this innate glee just to be is that which bears witness to our life unfolding, and which is without preference for difficult or easy, or vice versa rather, that doesn't need to avoid hardship or inconvenience any more than it needs to grasp at ease and convenience. It is just delighted to be bearing witness to life unfolding, because it knows that this is the gift, and that any achievements one here on the ground, whether these be material achievements or emotional achievements or spiritual achievements even, or creative achievements or social achievements, are merely passing phenomena, as is everything that is made manifest in this world of what the Taoists call the 10,000 things. This doesn't mean that we don't honour all these phenomena as they pass by, but we honour them as expressions of the Tao, of the unseen, invisible, ubiquitous, all-informing, all-connecting presence and force, which cannot be defined or cannot even really be named. The Chinese just alluded to it as Tao, meaning loosely the way, i.e. the way of reality, or the way it seems to be. But no one would have the audacity to try and explain, define, or describe. It's just simply too huge. We're like flowers in a garden, and it's the force that makes all the flowers grow. And as such, we honour every manifestation of it, every ramification of every manifestation. Yet we're not fooled into thinking these are the autonomous entities they appear to be, any more than we're fooled into thinking that we ourselves are the autonomous entities that we appear to be. I will explain more clearly, unless in the style of a riddle, as we go along here. So this is the last, or the finale, the grand finale even, of this present sequence, the golden flow. I was going to say golden flow. That's almost sounding obscene. The golden flower, which is one of many Taoist metaphors to describe the light that will shine from within when we, you, I, are connected, unified on every level, in every dimension, in the sense that the local mind, the mind that is reference to this what we perceive around us, is one with the witness bearer, In other words, you're in it, but you're not of it. You're observing, experiencing, bearing witness to, relishing, appreciating, being grateful for the experience of being alive from all the way back inside at the level of witness bearer. Another way of describing this would be that you are your spirit rather than this concocted personality, this story that you've made up about who you are and what you are, with which you interface with the world around you. It's a story, in fact. It's not a bad thing to do that. It wouldn't be able to exist without what Freud called the ego, sense of I. The downside of the ego is when we mistake it for being who we really are. It's like an actor mistaking the character that they're playing for themselves. And this is very confusing. And if you look around you, it would appear that many people are rather confused about their identities. Hence why, when you go to say a comedy show, like I did last night up here in Manchester where I am at the moment, and everybody lets go and laughs, the joy of that is the release in that moment from the story of who we think we are, of all the stories we're telling ourselves, of all the things we're trying to think or not think, and so on and so forth, and collectively experience ourselves just for a moment as these massive, huge spirits that go on forever. And it doesn't have to just be a comedy. I was this afternoon just kind of wandering slowly through one of the main squares in Manchester. This is the place of my mother's birth, and so I spent a lot of my childhood up here in Manchester. And so hence it has special significance to me. And just like everywhere else on the planet, especially in the last 30 years or so, it's changed hugely. And yet, in the midst of a world apparently losing its moorings faster and faster, in a geophysical sense, in the sort of the virological sense, the ecological sense, and so on and so on, there was this beautiful, heartwarming Sartori experience, I believe, indicative of how the session we did last week, in which we shone the golden light of healing into the field that connects us to all our human family, which was almost like a sign just before this satsang for me that it was, I have never sat in such a multicultural setting. Almost every single person walking by was speaking a different language, and these were from all over the world. It's a real good smattering of American, Arabic, Latin American, Spanish, from mainland Spain, French, Italian. I heard Greek, I heard Lebanese, I heard Iranian, Persian rather. I heard Senegalese, Ghanaian, Nigerian, Japanese, Mandarin. I heard Russian, I heard Polish, I heard Czech. I heard so many languages talking so quickly, so many people passing by, everyone in a state of harmony. Nobody was stealing anything from anyone. Nobody was beating anybody up. No craziness had broken out. And everything was flowing beautifully. And I had an interesting experience yesterday. I was in Keele University in Staffordshire addressing the British Dowsers Association Annual General Bash, which is the second time I've had the honour to do that. They're a really interesting lot because they're in a tradition that's ancient, as in, I think, this is my theory, comes from the old Welsh Brythonic word duath, water. So it really was all about water divining. It's used for all sorts of things now, but it was originally about water divining and how water is really without water we don't have life. So water is crucial. And that connection of being able to intuit the flow of energy to lead you to water underground is, aside from the triumph of finding the water so that you can live, is an example of how we've experienced this huge sublime joy in feeling ourselves in relation to this mysterious presence, this Tao, this super intelligence that knows everything and will guide us when we're tuned into it to what we need. And actually seems to guide us when we're not tuned into it. We tend to follow more clumsily like that and bash ourselves around a lot more. You know, the idea is the more tuned in, the less we bump up against obstacles and the easier we get to the desired destination. And why was I telling you about these guys? Yes, because the new president had just been elected, and it was a lovely, 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 lovely woman who, especially lovely, looked quite severe, a bit like a headmistress, a head teacher at school. Just before we were going into the auditorium, I happened to be walking past her, and she stopped and she said, "Hey, thanks so much for coming to do this." And I could see she was really nervous, that she was for the very first time having to do public speaking. Quite a large audience in there as well. A little bit daunting if you've not done it before. And I just instinctively put my hand on her chest, which she received immediately and understood. Because these houses, they're like that. They're not from this kind of modern wave of human potential exploration. They come from, as I say, this ancient tradition. She recognized immediately that this was intended as a healing, calming maneuver on my part. And so she received it graciously and very quickly relaxed and started breathing. And I said to her, look, the main reason we go on stage is just to give love to people. She said, oh, thank you. That's exactly what I've been thinking. Nonetheless, she went on stage and quite understandably was really nervous at first. I mean, it was a big, big audience. And she was nervous, and I was in the front row waiting to be called up onto the stage. So I kind of leapt forward and I projected all my calming, healing, strengthening, collecting energy into her sphere. And it looked like it wasn't doing anything for a moment. And then within, as long as it takes, you know, these horrible new energy-saving light bulbs that take quite a while to start bright, you know, lighting up. And then when the light that they do comes on, it wasn't really that worth waiting for, but nonetheless, there's that kind of strange delay. It was exactly like that. The sense of like, nothing's happening. Oh, look, 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 bang. And when I got on stage, finally, and I pointed this out, what a lovely, amazing person, and to have a lovely, shining, vulnerable soul. The reason she's so nervous is because she so cares about what this is all about, and she doesn't just care about it for the sake of housing. She knows that this is one of the nexuses of decency and healing and the desire to heal this group of people, and we need these groups like we're here right now to antidote the darkness that's encroaching. And I said I knew I wasn't alone sending the energy because I could feel other people doing it, and asked, and quite a few people acknowledged they've been doing it as well. And it's that sense of when we make an intervention or intercession into the field, it's not like the old-fashioned light switch where you turn it on and bang, you've got a lovely golden glow in the room. It takes a while for it to start doing something or for it to become apparent. And then when it does start happening, it isn't a lovely warm glow necessarily. It's going to be a bit of a funny cold light at first, a bit unrecognizable. Not perfect, not ideal, not fairy tale-like, if you like. But then it settles into, and you suddenly realize, yes, we are affecting, we are doing something. And I think if we were to get kind of, I don't know, what's the word, pragmatic or so about it? I don't know anyway, I don't know if this is pragmatic or just purely subjective. But although it's probably, well, it might not hold, it's already showing straining and the main issue is not resolved. There has been a ceasefire in Ukraine, i.e. there's not been that many people being killed today as there have been all the other days. Unfortunately, one woman died in gunfire, but that was only one rather than many. There's a calming, at least for the time being, which in the light of there being a new moon tonight, part of the time, is quite remarkable, really, because you'd expect it to go the other way. Then something that was kind of on the cards anyway, but it was quite remarkable since our last satsang of calming down the world, it turns out that Iran and America, two sworn enemies over the last since 1979, have actually acknowledged that they are working together now, brought together by common foe, to kind of deal with the Islamist scourge in the Levant. But that is remarkable. It's also more remarkable when you consider it was only last week that Iran tacitly let the world know that they now have the nuclear bomb that everybody's been trying to stop them having. And so far, so good. It turns out they have one, and they're working on the same side. So they tested their long-range missile, and it worked, and it's nuclear capable, and they have the nuclear material for it. So they've got that bomb that everybody wanted them to not have. So that turned out, so far, not to be the awful thing it was. Ebola, the virus that could become a global epidemic, that got played down quite a bit last month or so, where it was really quite obvious it was going to be a serious problem. At last, though, everybody started realizing that we have to deal with it globally so that it doesn't spread everywhere, which is good, because if it was still burying our heads in the sands that we were hitherto, that would not be good, because it does need dealing with. And altogether, against all the odds, everything that's stacked up against us, we're here talking about all this, and that is a big miracle. And what we're going to do now together is to instigate an amplification of all that's good in that miracle. What I've been feeling, and I've had kind of corroborated by various tuned-in friends and accomplices who are fairly expert in these things. I've been feeling it myself since, I think it was last Sunday or Saturday, about a week ago. There was a sense that the sonic vibrational frequency of the Earth had changed, perhaps increased. It's hard to say because it's not really audible. It's in the infrasonic range. It's not really audible by us humans. We can just somehow sense it. It's such a low frequency. It's around the on frequency, somewhere around 7.8 hertz, I think. I think it's called the Schumann resonance. It's like an under rumble that you can just about feel occasionally. It's more of a sense. And what I found, I've been traveling around a lot lately, different parts of the world, and it's been the same everywhere I've gone, including here in Manchester, which for me is one of those places that I know so well that it's almost, how could anything like that happen in Manchester? Manchester's just Manchester. You don't get things like Earth phenomena here. It's separate from all of that. But even here I'm feeling it really strongly. There's something going on, and it's powerful. And so then I'm looking at how all this is playing out here on the planet. Of course, this is, as I say, purely subjective. It's just a view. I don't suggest anything that I say is absolute truth. I'm merely presenting a view, an artist's view. You listen, you decide yourself. Don Persick, who wrote the Zen of Motor, I can't remember the name, I must have read about 800 times, Zen and the Art of Motorcycling, and Leela. He put it very beautifully that there is what the Chinese call the yin, he called the static quality, and what the Chinese call the yang, he referred to as the dynamic quality. So you have the static quality and the dynamic quality. The static obviously means that it wants everything to stay the same. The dynamic, as it says, wants everything to move and to change. If you had only static, if you only had the yin, everything would just congeal. It would solidify and be meaningless. There'd be no motion, no action. If everything was purely dynamic, there'd be no form to anything because it would be moving too much to hold a shape. So there has to be a sensible, I don't know if that's the word for it, a sensitive, a delicate but definite balance between these two qualities, between the yin and the yang, the static and the dynamic. And what occurs within us occurs externally as a mirror to what goes on inside of us, as much as what goes on externally is mirrored by what we're feeling internally. This is like a fundamental metaphysical tenet. What happens is the more we learn to become centered and gathered and identified with the witness bearer, that background presence that observes without preference from within, the more it shifts so that it's the outside mirroring what's occurring on the inside and not affecting what's occurring on the inside to the same extent. It's as if you gather and reclaim your power as a nexus within the continuum, rather than being a victim of the world that you're perceiving occurring around you. For example, the fundamentalist medieval retrogressive psychosis that we're witnessing infecting tens of thousands of young men in the Middle East is mirroring an internal retrogressive tendency with each of us. Because I think that the frequency of the planet is increasing. We know that solar activity is increasing. It's as if we're going through a part of space that's more intense. It's increasingly intense. The draw to transformation, all sorts, to shifting, to changing, to progressing, to developing the new, is growing ever stronger. Ironically, in the face of the resources we've grown accustomed to depending on, dwindling ever faster. And the thrust forward, so to speak, is in opposition to the static quality. That within, which wants everything to remain in place, is at odds with the forward thrust. And so it digs its heels in. Internally, in each of us, there's an aspect of each of us that wants to dig our heels in and hold it steady and not change. You know, part of us that wants to return to the cul-de-sac and bury our heads in the sand and try and make it like it used to be when we were kids, in our rose-tinted view when we look back at the past, if that's how we're seeing it. By letting go of our resistance internally, each of us as individuals, and being more willing to trust the thrust, we'll notice that the fire that's fueling the psychosis that we've been witness to out there will start to cool down. And as a result, the actions will become less barbaric, and who knows what will happen then. But that's how these things generally play out. The kind of complexity of such geopolitical deals as America and Iran partnering over that issue are so huge, they're so convoluted, and that's just one situation. If you multiply that by at least 100 and then multiply each of those by 1,000 bits of convolution, I still think even there we're not getting close to how complex this whole world of diplomacy and geopolitics actually is. And that mirrors, that reflects the convolutions we each have within us. The complex layers of lies and obfuscations that we're perpetrating, each of us within, very subtle ones, the way that we trick ourselves into seeing things a certain way, or how we trick ourselves into not seeing things, to ignoring things, to not being aware of them, and how we'll create a description of reality that somehow supports us in this web of lies. This is not a criticism, by the way. It is an intrinsic part of the human condition. It's just one of the mechanisms that we apparently need to function. And the more that we're able to identify with the purity of the witness bearer, the background presence within, rather than this confected self that we've been creating since we were born, this version of reality and this version of a person that we believe ourselves to be, the less we are identified with that, and the more we identify with the great presence, should we call it, within, the less these layers of lies and obfuscations are solid. They dissipate. They become flimsy and dissolve. And then we'll see, as a result of that, more straightforwardness, I posit, and less obfuscation and lies, and more direct deals being done, and therefore more kind of positive results occurring in the external world. This sort of general increasing global insecurity and the security that people are feeling about the future financially and in every other way, the fear of what could happen as a result of this or that, and the response of posturing by these ridiculously expensive and pompous military exercises, showing who's got the biggest, well, let's say, who's got the strongest, the most powerful gun kind of thing, who's got the biggest club, who's got the strongest biceps, who's strongest around here. This maybe reflects the internal fear that each of us have, which comes from an unwillingness to sit back and enjoy the ride, trusting the flow to deliver us, no longer being so terrified of inconvenience and being put out or our plans going astray and so on. The internal bravado with which we cover over our fear, which if we could just acknowledge, would give us the energy to somehow flow with the Tao and sit back and not jar it with fearful thoughts. Actually, that's more the subject of the fear training, the psychology of fear training. Ultimately, though, none of it is real, although it is hugely convincing. None of this is real. None of this that we experience, not my leg or my arm or your nose or your eye or your ear or the room around you or the people that you love or the things that have happened or the things that are going to happen. None of it is ultimately real. All of it is merely relative. We are in the realm of relativity. There is only one thing ultimately real, and that is the source of all of it, the prime force, the primordial cause of everything and nothing, the Tao. If you want to call it that, you can call it anything you like. It's only a name. It doesn't matter. And each of us is a manifestation of Tao. And as such, as a holographic version of the big one, each of us are entitled to message back to the mothership, so to speak, and put a vote in, like calm it down, calm it all down here. You might not realize it, but it's gone a little bit intense. Take the steam out of the destructiveness and add momentum to the constructiveness. It's an interesting concept, isn't it, that we could possibly, as aspects of it, send the message back to the main brain and go like, easy now, calm it down, calm it down. The same thing happens within the human body, of course. Or do you fear, fundamentally, ask yourself, that the Tao, that God, or whatever you want to call it, is actually a con artist, a big trickster, a pervert, somebody who wants to kind of lull you into a sense of false security and then just whip the rug out from under your feet? It certainly looks like that sometimes, we all know. It certainly looks like we're being tested at times. How things go wrong suddenly, the curveballs and so on. But another metaphysical tenet, one of the immutable ones, is that the Tao, the God, the divine, is, as far as we're concerned, in terms of our experience of it, a mirror to what we believe it is. Because it itself is just too huge to contemplate. But in terms of our sense of it, the way it reacts to us is like a mirror, in the same way as the external world, because the external world is merely it dancing before our eyes. So if you believe it is a trickster, if you kind of go with that Old Testament style, capricious, wily, relatively cruel, almost like an old drunk coming home at night and beating everybody up in the house because it feels like it. If you go with that one, then that's probably how it's going to mirror it back itself back at you. If you went, though, with, say, the Native American one, Great Spirit, Creator, it's like a bit like a brother or a sister when they talk to it. very on the level, very supportive. It's not a trickster. It's a friend. It's a friend that just wants to listen. It acts like that. If you go with the Taoist approach, they called it the mama, the big mama, and the mother of all existence and non-existence. And if you could imagine a bountiful, large-breasted, beautiful maternal figure who would just cleave you onto her breast and hold you there so that you knew that you were safe and that all your needs would be provided for, then it will act towards you in that way. But then comes the next question. Do you feel worthy of it? Fundamentally, do you feel worthy of it? I mean, is it really true that something that shits and pisses and makes a mess like human beings do, is worthy of the love and support and providence of something so utterly magnificent and pure as the Tao? Are you worthy of the Tao? Well, one has to assume that if we're here, we must be, because the Tao is not an idiot as far as we can tell. It wouldn't manifest itself as any of us if it didn't want us to be here, if it didn't want to be us. If it wasn't natural for us to be here, we wouldn't be here. Therefore, we have to assume that no matter our complexes and our twisted belief patterns, we are worthy. We are worthy. You are worthy. But are you blocking the flow of its providence, of its love for you, of its support for you, for fear that you're not? You don't have to answer the question, just ask it to yourself. Am I blocking this flow because I don't feel worthy? And when you do, imagine yourself as a beautiful, beautiful flower in the most gorgeous botanical gardens, asking itself the same question. Am I really worthy of being in this garden with all these other flowers? It's obvious that it is, or it wouldn't be there. Same with you. Because it's really important that at this point in history, we all rise up in our self-esteem and participate more fully by doing so. Because it would appear that the Tao needs our help right now, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing here, unless we're all completely insane, which I somehow suspect we're not. Because the Tao, the way it is, the way it's expressing itself through people, does look a little crazy. It has a bit of an insane look to it right now, on this planet at least. And it's quite likely that somehow or other it needs comforting. It needs some calming influence. And it is actually in our power as individuated manifestations of it in human form to intercede and to ordain calm right at the core of the source, as presumptuous as it seems. The Hopis, I met Thomas Benyaka, keeper of the Hopi prophecy, back in '79. And what he said is that this apparent global strife that we're experiencing here is a step-down version of what's actually occurring in the subatomic realm, he called it, in heaven. Between the forces of dark and light, I would call that between the yin and the yang, or the static and the dynamic. And it's an eternal one. And we are like puppets acting it out. But once we become conscious, once we become cognitive that we are intrinsic aspects of the continuum, we're able to influence it by doing what they call praying, which means that we sit and we talk with the Creator, and we say to the Creator, calm it down here now. We need more calm. We need more love. We need more of the beauty and the kindness and the decency to come evident. Because for sure it's there. I come across it more and more all the time. There's more and more people waking up to their beautiful, noble qualities. And it's a joy. It's not spectacular. It doesn't make a noise. It's not sensationalist. It doesn't scare people. It doesn't have that kind of reaction. So we hardly notice it happening. But it's equally as powerful, if not far more powerful, than the dark, the violence, and so on. It just doesn't look that way. But it is. And we have this in our power to increase. So while it does look like, I know, the runaway train effect seems to have a momentum of its own, and it's sometimes with the intellectual mind really hard to see how we might divert that from crashing. But by reaching back into the very core, the hub whence springs all activity everywhere throughout time and space, and cognitively together rejoining the one, the Tao, in oneness, excuse the words and the words and the words, we can place our vote at that level for quantum calming to occur, like a quantum leap in calmness to occur. Then, just being kind of practical about it, because this might be a load of nonsense, we never really know, although I'm telling you it's not, but I have to give it that benefit of the doubt as well, in case Richard Dawkins is on this call. But whether it rolls with that or it doesn't, ultimately doesn't matter, because it will do what it will do anyway. What does matter, though, is us connecting into it now, so that we each feel its power to fuel us each through whatever we're presented with, if nothing else. So by us plugging in to the core within each of us, but it's the same core we'll be plugging into, this will grant us a new burst of inner fuel to power us through whatever this next passage is going to present us with. And we'd be sure it's going to present us with stuff, because things are getting more and more intense. The yin-yanging effect is getting more and more extreme. And we're obliged to enjoy this show. That's why the Tao makes itself into us, so it can have a good time through our bodies. So it's our function to be here enjoying it. We mustn't let anything spoil the ride. And we need fuel for that. We need fuel that's going to strengthen us and give us courage and flexibility and resilience and enough grace to be able to take care of those around us as we roll along. And the way the magic works is by making the connection. We do actually activate a shift at the very hub of the wheel, which then of itself bounces back to the rim of the wheel, where we all are, i.e. from the subatomic realm out to the manifest realm. And what we call miracles happen, these quantum events, which suddenly transform everything without there having to be a big mess to make it happen. And these will be ubiquitous and global. These will, one way or another, happen for everyone. And it's much, much needed right now. So the Tao can't be envisaged, it can't be described, it can't be defined. But it sits there at the nub of existence, right at the hub of the wheel. And it just bursts forth of itself into all of this. That's what all this is, the Tao with fancy dress on. And we can't define it or describe it, but we can feel our way into the connection, which actually, after all, was never broken in the first place, save in our amnesiac minds. Every manifest aspect of Tao is imbued with amnesia, so that it forgets that it is Tao. And by that process, the Tao can play hide and seek with itself, because bit by bit, each of its manifest aspects wakes up to the fact that, oh yeah, wait a minute, it starts seeking, like all of us seek instinctively, the mothership, and we start remembering bit by bit by bit. And that's how the game of hide and seek is played out. Because what else was it going to do with itself? It's going to sit here for eternity doing nothing. So it makes up a game. The game is hide and seek. It's a great game. And although the Taoists say that you can't define it, and they kind of prefer us not to personify it, they think that's kid stuff. Nonetheless, let us indulge in a bit kid stuff here, because it's always fun, and personify Tao as the big mama. The huge, succulent breast, loving, warm, nurturing, beautiful mother, bountiful, wanting only to give. You get that sense of that archetypal, ideal, wonderful mum, the one that just gives it all. And she just sits there as powerful and omniprovident as she is. She, in her magnificent universal humility, It's actually awaiting our command. And what we're going to do now is enter into the meditation state to do our magic intervention here. And we're sitting here from all the way around the world, at every single time zone. Satsang, if you've not been before, means being together in authenticity without any front or pretense. What a privilege. So here we are, a few hundred spirits in human form, and through the wonder of technology, we're able to connect almost telepathically without the forms or the physical show getting in the way at all. Perfectly safe in this moment, nothing to fear, nothing to be on guard for. Allow your local mind, the part of you that's referenced to the world of the 10,000 things, to drift. Just let it drift. Give it a rest, a well-earned rest. Lower your eyelids. Perhaps leave a little slit at the bottom to allow in some light. Keep the brain alert. Become aware of the posture that you're sitting in. Sitting is the recommended posture for this, so that the spine is perpendicular to the ground, and then antenna more efficiently. And whatever you're doing with your posture, imagine that there's a snake charmer, and your spine is a snake, and your skull is the head of the snake, and the snake charmer is playing the chennai, or whatever they're called, so masterfully that you cannot resist but be uncoiled from your basket at the base of your spine, and for your spine to reach up through the crown of your head, just like that snake, until it's really elongated, quite miraculously elongated. Feel the whole spine fully elongated, fully lengthened. And now you can afford to drop the shoulders and let them broaden out. And you can afford to just very gently, without arching your back, slide your breastbone up 0.5 millimeter, up and slightly forwards as if it's reaching for the base of your chin. This will add to your regal bearing. This will increase your kingly or queenliness, that you're the sovereign of your own realm. And it's a gesture of rising up to all that is beautiful within you and around you. Now that you've somewhat expanded the mainframe, you can afford to allow the muscle and soft tissue to relax and soften. So rather than be sitting with unnecessary rigidity in any muscle group, you can now afford to soften every muscle group completely. You do this by issuing command. Muscle group, relax, relax. And you just do it by going through the body from the crown of your head down over your face, sides of your head, the back of your head, the back of your neck, your throat, just the shoulders, shoulder blades, between the blades, down the upper arms, through the elbows and the forearms, and the hands and the fingers, and down the sides of the body, and the middle back, and the lower back, and the chest, and the upper abdomen, the lower abdomen, and the pelvic bowl, the bowl formed by all the pelvic bones and the sacrum and the pelvic floor. Let everything completely relax. And down your legs, the upper legs, the knees, the lower legs, the feet, toes, until every single muscle group in the whole body completely and utterly relaxed and soft. Already this encourages a greater flow of vitality within you, which you now amplify by stop holding your breath and breathe slowly and freely and smoothly and luxuriantly, appreciating that breath is the elixir of life itself. When you can no longer take another breath, you're obliged to leave the planet. While you can take another breath, you're entitled and allowed and able to be on the planet at least for one more breath. Breath is the elixir of life itself. To take that next breath, there has to be expulsion of the breath that came before. So also appreciate that facility for releasing the old breath so that you can take in the new breath. Of course, this relates to being able to let go of the story so far to welcome in the next bit, letting go of what you filled your mind with to receive the next bit. So there's a lot of grace in the breathing. The breathing out, there is grace. In the breathing in, there is grace because you're receiving. You're allowing yourself to receive the gift of life from the Tao itself. And the weight of the head and the shoulders and the upper body normally suspended somehow in the upper body by virtue of the fact that we have evolved into upright bipeds, actually seeks the earth because it's heavy. Gravity pulls it down towards the center of the earth. Because the spine is elongating itself, you can afford to do that now without reverting to becoming a primate walking around on all fours. So just allow the weight of the head and the shoulders and the chest, the thorax, to drop down into the belly and the legs so that you feel rooted, weighted in the lower part, yet the upper part feels free and light and clear. Now, the front of the chest, the breastbone, is a protective device, of course, for the chest itself, but also energetically. It's called the heart protector. And we've learned to overprotect the heart through having been betrayed and let down, disappointed, humiliated, unfairly treated, and so on, all the way back when we were tiny children. And bit by bit, we calcified that area. We closed over. We made it go a little bit energetically stuck and stiff so that it won't let love out and it won't let love in with the freedom that it requires. Imagine, to counteract this, that you're able to open the chest like a pair of sliding doors being opened from the center, sliding out to the sides, to reveal in the core of your chest what appears to be like a cluster of precious jewels bedecked in mystical flowers, emanating a radiance, a fragrance that is so perfectly balanced and sweet that it can only delight the soul of anyone who has the privilege of smelling it. This is symbolic of your precious essence, your beauty, your innate intrinsic beauty as a soul, now free to radiate to everybody in this circle and to everybody beyond everyone in this circle, freely, generously, without fear of being taken advantage of or hurt as a result. To the contrary, now by having this area open, you're also availing yourself, you're receiving that same quality being radiated by everyone in the circle and everyone on the planet right now who is either actively or not aware that they're doing it, radiating good, noble essence, this beautiful love, this core of the human spirit that we all love and appreciate. So you're now basking in the continuum of that subtle yet ubiquitous, all-connecting love. You're breathing in and you're breathing out. And the allure of the external world, or really of how you describe the external world to yourself, is such that it draws you forwards normally into the front of your body to get a closer look. Instead of that, let's flow backwards into the back of the body instead. Imagine that as the queen or the king of the realm, you're sitting back in your throne, in the throne room, which is at the rear of the palace, not at the front, nowhere near the front gates of the palace. The guards are between you and the front gates of the palace. You are the sovereign and therefore are required, not only entitled, to sit right back in the throne in a position of command, supreme command of the realm. You don't lean forwards. People come up to you, they lean forwards, you lean back. And so feel yourself leaning into your shoulder blades, leaning into the front of your spine, leaning into the lower back, and really occupying the back of you. And you'll notice that you become fully still, silent, and you're feeling strong. No longer noisy, no longer caught in the drama of being you. Now you really are one with the background presence, the witness bearer, that has been here all the while and will remain here all the while, observing, enjoying the experience of being here, giving thanks for being here, without preference for whether it yins or it yangs. And here you are. Behind you, behind the physical back, this presence of you goes on forever and ever and ever. And it's huge. It's universal. And it's maybe even bigger than that, that there can be such a thing. And this presence is eternal. This presence is the one that was here right at the beginning and will be here right at the end. And is completely unchanged throughout. And for it, bearing in mind the scope of it, what seems like a lifetime to us goes by so quickly it hardly even is noticeable. The orbit of the solar system around the galaxy, when seen from the perspective of something as big as the universe, will be like watching a mosquito whiz past your nose. Very, very, very quick. That's the perspective of the Tao. And right now, we are all back right into that, where the doings of the local world, am I going to succeed, aren't I going to succeed, will there be peace, will there not be peace, how are we going to get through this, how am I going to get through this, everything that occurs on the material plane is just a very, very fast spinning dream. But this dream can now be injected with a healing agent. So all is one, all connected into this one big presence. Let us ordain that this very fast-moving dream that each of us is engaged in on the earth plane, or apparently engaged in, is now injected with a magnificent healing agent, this golden light of the spirit. And it's such a rich golden light. It's such a warm golden light. It's like a red, warm golden light that warms everything in the sense that it comforts it. It makes it feel secure. It makes it feel safe. It makes it feel strong. It makes it feel that you can trust this path. It makes it feel like anything you put your mind to can be accomplished. It makes it feel like it's okay to be kind and giving to people. In fact, the more you're kind and giving, the more the world will be kind and giving to you too. It makes it okay to be original, to be creative with your thought, to not worry what other people think about you, because you know that you are on the path and what you're doing is the very best that could possibly be done by this thing called you. And that this light not only suffuses your physical form that sits here in this body, not only does it suffuse your emotional field, your mental field, this light suffuses the field that connects you to everyone else in this circle, to everyone else that everyone else here knows, to everyone that they know, and everyone that they know, and so on and so on and so on, until you're connected through this field to everyone on this planet. And everyone on this planet is merely this one being. It's merely this Tao with many, many different faces. And this Tao loves you because you are it. It loves you, just like you would love a little kitten, but much, much more than that. And you love it in exactly the same way. And the feeling of this partnership, apparent partnership, because really it is just one, is so healing, so nurturing, that it's for sure that even though the local mind will continue with this habit of creating entities and so on and what have just to keep relationship, you can be sure that everything you touch from here on in will turn to gold. You can be sure that you will be looked after and that there is nothing to fear. You only have to fear if you're finding it enjoyable. So there's this beautiful privilege now earned by each of us here, that we have connected into the source, and this connection will continue in your dreams while you sleep, when you meditate, and just at odd moments when you weren't expecting it. And it will be like the Tao, the Big Mama, winking at you from different angles in the street, from office windows, from passing aeroplanes, from snatches of tunes going by. You're going to be winked at, and wonderful things will evolve, not just for each of us, for everyone we know, for everyone on the planet. Of course there will be suffering, of course there will be pain, of course there will be death. This is how the world operates. It cannot be avoided. But within all of that, there will be an increase of grace, and we will see it, and we will see signs, and this is going to be amazing. I have noticed that I've gone completely to the hour here with this meditation, and so I'm going to actually eschew any question and answers for this one. It has been the most amazing session and the most amazing sequences. And although it does go a bit higgledy-piggledy and hinky-pinky and all over the place, after we've done the sessions, I know that the effect of it can be quite unpredictable. I know that this is going to have powerful, benign effects on the entire field of reality as we know it, and on the world as we know it, and on each of us here. We will receive many benefits from doing so. And I thank you so much for making this possible. I certainly wouldn't have sat here doing this all on my own, that's for sure. It's been lovely. And I want to thank Sue as well, Sue, our esteemed producer, without whose help we would be hearing none of this as well. Bless her and all the slides and incredible amount of hard work she does behind the scenes. I'd like to thank the DAO on all our behalf for just being us, because it's what a clever trick, eh? What a great trick. Here, 3 cheers to the DAO, and that's it, and that's all. Little pain, suffering, be dispelled. Little pain, suffering.